Welcome to the Reconciling Mission podcast, where we explore missional engagement with our local communities and a broader understanding of reconciliation. I'm Mina, your host, Network and Development Lead. I'm a priest, an author, and someone who has the privilege of leading two wonderful churches in Derby. So join me as we dive into rich conversations, biblical insights, and inspiring stories of churches and individuals finding ways to engage with our neighbours and contribute to reconciliation in our local contexts. Welcome back, everybody. And today we are with Lydia Morey, and Lydia is on one of the more recent cohorts of the Reconciling Mission programme.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lydia and I work in Swindon. I'm the priest in charge at St. Peter's, Penhill, and St. Philip's, Upper Stratton. So St. Peter's is what we in Bristol Diocese call a priority community. It's the 173rd most deprived parish in the Church of England. For some reason, the PCC are amazingly proud of this statistics, which is why I know it. I'm also an unusual breed in the CLV in that I'm a SSM incumbent. So professionally, I teach Japanese at Oxford Brookes, and I teach Japanese and Chinese in schools.
So you are a very well-rounded person, especially for clergy, because you have an outside life as well as a church life. So it's been really interesting to get to know you a bit. I imagine in your career as clergy or your career in the church, you have come across a variety of mission initiatives, mission programs. How would you say that the Reconciling Mission program is, what's the difference here between Reconciling Mission and programs or initiative you've experienced before?
I felt that what was really good was the emphasis on explaining things, on really grasping the principles, on talking through those principles and how they might apply through case studies and things, but then to actually be trusted, if you like, or being given the responsibility for actually how does this look in your context. That was very much up to us and to our own discernment and discernment in conversation.
Could you give me an example of one of what you're calling principles? Could you just choose one that kind of is the most important to you?
So we talked about bumping in spaces in our own community. So we sort of mapped our own communities and talked about geographically where are the natural places where people pass by and bump into each other and stop and have that. I don't want to say school gate chat because that then limits it to the school gate, but where do people naturally flow and bump into each other and just have that spontaneous conversation. So that was one of the key ideas for me. And then a very related other key idea was about community connectors. So who are the people in the community who know everybody and who, get in touch with everybody and who know if you need this job, then, oh, such and such 2 streets down the road will do that for you. And to me, when those principles were explained to me, I could immediately see it. And I suddenly thought, of course, I know community connectors. I can exactly name for you who the community connectors are. But I never thought of how, as a clergy person, I could use those for the church. And certainly with one of my parishes, I feel that we are very short on the bumping in spaces in our community. And so rather than thinking, oh, what can I do as mission and evangelism in this as a program or an activity, it just gave me a different lens to think, I wonder if we need to create a bumping in space, or I wonder whether we need to go to look a bit further as to where the bumping in spaces are, and then get church people strategically passing those places and stopping in those places. So that's sort of an example.
Is there anything else that you've explored? Because you've spoken quite a lot about things that you've explored as a result of this. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to things that the Reconciling Mission program has sparked in your kind of missional thinking or community engagement?
At Christmas, inviting everybody in the community to make a window, so any music they liked. So we didn't particularly say Christmas carols, although obviously the people in the church did Christmas carols, but any the sort of the challenge was to the brownies and the preschool and everybody who we have around, draw a picture, put it in your window, a bit like the rainbows we had in COVID, so that people going around, walking around can see it. It didn't take off as much as I hoped. It was a little bit disappointing in that sense. And then we just opened it up. We had a community carol sing with back at the church with, if it's big, if it's small enough, bring your picture and we'll sing your carols. That was something new and something that we hadn't tried before. And as I say, possibly because it was the first year, possibly because we needed to work on our publicity a bit more. It didn't quite take off over the entire community in the way perhaps I might have dreamt of in my big dreams. But it was a good way of just sort of saying, hello guys, hello brownies, hello preschool, hello everybody we bump into.
I think somebody once said to me, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, because it's about trying things, isn't it? And sometimes it's not going to work the way you thought it was going to work, but it's worth trying it anyway, especially if we model that to our congregations and say, okay, we tried it, let's do this next time. It kind of makes them a bit more confident, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
But I think they've certainly got used to me, that the fact that I'm not that worried about failing and it's still worth trying and so on.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway that you have from the Reconciling Mission course?
I suppose it's very easy to think that, I'm the minister, I'm the person who preaches the gospel, I have it here and I'm here to offer this to everybody else. And I do still believe that, I still believe that as Christians, we have a message that we need to share with other people and that they need to hear it. But there's also something about recognizing that our people out there who don't come to the church also have lots of treasure, and that actually we need to receive and be humble and receive as well as give, and also so that acknowledgement, I think, one thing that's important is that acknowledgement that people out there have treasure as well as us having treasure. And then the second point is about valuing it and affirming it wherever you find it. I suppose if you talk different language, you talk about, connecting with people of peace, something like that. But and then the third thing I think is to say, actually, our resource is much greater, rather than if we just hold on to our treasure and use our treasure. Actually, if we find their treasure as well and say, look, let's bring our treasure together, we have a big pile of treasure and we can do more things, and we can share this.
And I think there's something in there about a power shift, isn't there? Historically, churches have liked to be in charge and have liked to run things, but actually acknowledging that there is treasure in the community. We're not the only ones with the treasure. And instead of being the host all the time, being the guest in what somebody else is doing, because what they're doing is of value too. So that there is a real power shift sometimes, isn't there?
So I went to a community day in the library, and I was in their space, and I had my collar on and I had church staff and whatever. And then somebody came up to me and said, I can tell you all about your church. And actually, he was a local historian and he was obviously interested in the history of the church. He could tell me, he ran through all the ministers. He seems to know all the ministers and their dates off the top of his head. I'm like, I'm not even interested in this. I'd never met him, and he knew my name and my date that I'd arrived and a little bit about my background. And I'm like, I've never introduced myself. And that was one of those moments for me where there was somebody else out there, doesn't come to church. I didn't know him personally, or I didn't even know of him, although I discovered subsequently some church members knew of him. But he very proudly said, I can tell you all about your church, and sure enough, he could. And just to find that there's somebody there who actually takes a real interest in the history of this place, in the building. If I ever need any obscure questions for any faculties, he probably knows the answer, and it probably one email as opposed to me trying to dig around in archives, whatever information I'm looking for. So yeah, that was sort of a little bit of a real moment for that, a real realization moment of that for me.
Thank you so much, Lydia. It's been amazing to speak to you today. And thank you to everybody listening at home.
Thank you, Mina. It's lovely being talking.
end.